Car companies try so hard to make the perfect enthusiast-focused car, but it's never enough. So last week, we had an extreme example of how far you can take an already perfect car.
This thing is insane!
And this week, we're gonna dig in deeper because even the most perfect car isn't good enough. And for people like me, the solution is simple. We modify cars. But for a lot of people, they don't have the mental fortitude to deal with all of the nonsense that comes with modifying a car. And we're in luck because today's world, there's a solution for that. So today, we've got two examples of this situation. On one hand, we have a 700 horsepower monster with a warranty. And the other one is so extreme that it's not even what you think it is. This is not a Porsche 911. But this started a really long time ago. So let's talk about that real quick.
All right, Blondie, how does that dust taste?
It actually goes all the way back to the 1960s. But before we go there, if you're not subscribed to my channel and you enjoy the content, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It's free. But if you want to support any further, it is blisteringly hot here in California for some reason, but it's winter in most places. So Driver's Error dropped a new hoodie and crew neck. So go to the site and check that out. But anyways, a man named Don Yenko, he worked at a Chevrolet dealership in Pennsylvania. It was his parents' dealership, and he had a crazy idea to sell a factory modified car. His most famous venture started with the Copo Camaro. This was central office purchase order, hence the name Copo, and it was generally reserved for dealers adding alterations to municipal fleets. This meant that Yenko got a clean slate but high performance car to start with, and from there, he went absolutely crazy. Don Yenko's intention was to produce a factory car that could decimate anything on the street. So the Copo Camaros were fitted with a 427 cubic inch engine, a 4-speed manual transmission, upgraded sway bars, upgraded brakes, and other chassis components. This was a recipe to slay the streets with a car that you purchased straight out of the dealership. And of course, over time, this grew, and manufacturers started developing their own performance groups. Things like TRD, SVT, AMG, M, N, R, and even a company that finally put a name to it, Nismo, and so many more. But OEMs have their limits, and when that limit is reached, other people will step in and build something for the people who want a modified car but don't want all the headaches. So today, we got two perfect examples of that. One being something that is reasonably affordable and pretty attainable, and the other being absolutely incredibly expensive and almost completely bespoke from the chassis it looks like. Let's go check them out. And first up, we have a G82 M3, and this is a Carbahn CB3 package. It makes 738 horsepower and 668 foot-pound of torque, and it has a 50,000-mile warranty. And if you don't know what Carbahn is, I bet you do know this name, Steve Dinan. Dinan's been making performance parts for BMWs since the 80s. And when I was younger, I used to see the Dinan badge. I never really understood it. It was all a little bit too reserved, too simple, not extreme enough for a dumb kid like me who just wanted to modify cars. But now that I'm old, I see it, I get it. This car right here makes over 700 horsepower. It does 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. And it has a 50,000-mile warranty. So it's for the person that may not be like me. It's for the person that wants all of this performance, but packaged in something that they never have to worry about. The newer cars get, the easier it is to make power, but the more regulations that come. Steve said something really interesting, which was my favorite generation, the E92 M3, which came with a 4-liter V8 with ITBs that revved to 8,500 RPM. It made 400 horsepower, and to make another 100 horsepower costs over $30,000. Whereas this 730 horsepower car costs just merely $3K. $3,000 to make 200 more horsepower than factory, and you still get it covered by a warranty. So there is a market for people who want brainless fun with no worry. So let's take it for a drive and see how it is. So I've been driving this car quite a bit, and I've been thinking about not only how good of a car this is, but also who the customer is. And I think a lot of people do want just a stock G80 M3, and it's good enough. And then there's other people on the extreme side of things that want a highly modified car. And part of the fun is making your own build. You've pieced together all of the parts, and it's unique, and you trial and error makes it good. On the other end of the spectrum, there's people with better things to do with their life. They want a modified car, but They just want something that someone else figured it all out for them. Someone else got the package down pat. It makes power, it's reliable, it doesn't overheat, it handles well, it does everything they want it to do, but they don't want to piece it together. They don't want to deal with it. And there's nothing wrong with that. So this G82 M4 has their basic power package, which has intakes, upgraded coolers, and of course, Steve Dinan's signature mapping on the ECU, which packs an insane punch, over 730 horsepower, 0 to 60 in just over 2 seconds. This thing is a friggin' riot. Suspension-wise, this car is pretty good out of the factory, but they added height adjustable springs because obviously you want it to look a certain way, and toe links in the rear and spherical bushings, which adds a little bit of NVH, but honestly tightens up the chassis so much and makes it feel way more assertive and way better. But since Steve Dinan always was the complete package, Carbahn doesn't just stop at the performance and the handling, they also do the exterior bits. So this car has a lot of carbon fiber packed on the outside and its own bespoke wheels made by Carbahn. This thing's huge and it's so fast, but it is very good. This thing eats up corners. It has so much grip. It's so compliant. The road we're on is very bumpy, very rough. It has lots of decent speed into hard braking zones, but be safe because we're on a public road and we're not idiots like everyone who's ruining Angela's Crest for us. The car is very confidence inspiring, which is actually a good point because I could see how all of these morons keep crashing in the canyons in these cars because it's so competent and it's so fast. And the thing that new cars do is they really hide their performance because they're made to be so high strung that going just slightly over the speed limit in the mountains doesn't feel like a lot. So people often are pushing way too hard, and then once they slip up, it goes really poorly. Quick message for all you guys and girls out there who want to be canyon heroes is go check out your local track day company, support enthusiasts who have brands that keep this crap off the road, because this is what we all enjoy doing, and the more people who keep wrecking their cars out there because they think they're a toge hero, you're gonna wreck it for all of us. Insane. This is so fast. If you want the ultimate daily driver, but what's on the market isn't enough, and you have just a little bit more money to spend, and you don't want any of the headache, I think the Carbahn CB package G82 M4 checks all the boxes. This thing is pretty friggin' incredible. But sometimes saving money is not in your cards, and you just want the absolute most that's available out there. Well, cue in Ruf. Ruf has been modifying Porsches since the 60s, but it wasn't until 1975 when Alois Ruf built his first complete package of a car called the SCR. It was a base 911 Carrera SC, built honestly exactly how I would build it today. He stripped out all the creature comforts except for what you absolutely needed. He made it as light as possible, punched out the 3-liter to a 3.2, added more compression, some hotter cams, with the main goal of just being able to smoke its bigger brethren, the 930 Turbo. But Ruf wasn't trying to be a Porsche modifier. By the 1980s, the German authorities finally recognized Ruf as a manufacturer, meaning they were no longer modifying 911s. And in 1983, they rolled out the BTR, the Group B Turbo Ruf. It was an incredible car, and honestly, I think it's my favorite Ruf ever made, but it was the first one with a Ruf VIN, meaning vehicle identification number. And also, fun fact, it was the first car ever to be offered with standard 17-inch wheels. Kind of crazy. I had to double check that like 400 times. But you can't mention Ruf without mentioning their most iconic car. In 1987, they came out with the CTR, the Yellowbird. Just enjoy some clips of this thing drifting around the Nürburgring. It's incredible. It made 463 horsepower and did 0 to 60 in 4 seconds. And it did 211 mile-an-hour top speed in 1987. I said all that just to say, this isn't a Porsche, it's a Ruf. And it's so rare, it's so hard to find information on, that I gotta bring in its caretaker. You've seen me talk over this guy before. It's Brian from Toprank Importers.
What's up?
Dude, not what we would expect from Toprank.
Nah, this is a Ruf RT12R, so it's built on a 997 chassis, but it is unlike anything
It's
that
also
the 997 did.
one of 13.
One of 13 cars built, yeah. And when you get down to speccing these cars, because they built so few of them, owners did have an option to order them and kind of make them the way that they wanted them. So this is an RT12R that looks like an RT12S because it has an RT12S appearance package, which is the softer front bumper and the softer rear, as well as the more luxurious interior. But it is optioned as the RT12R with the 720 horsepower 3.8 twin turbo. It's got the carbon ceramics. It has the interior roll cage.
Let's get to that.
Yeah, so many things going on with this car.
All right, so basic facts. 3.8 liter twin turbo, flat six, 6-speed manual, 720 horsepower. But it looks like a 911.
Yep.
Is this car all a factory 911 chassis, or is this like a carbon monocoque?
No, so what's interesting about this is during this era, Ruf was still getting their chassis from Porsche. So this is a 17-digit US VIN car, even though this car was never sold in the United States. So it does meet federal motor vehicle safety standards, which is why, as of 2012, I was able to get this car in Japan and import it to the United States.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
And it's pretty common nowadays to see a lot of these retro mod 911s that look a lot like a 911 but are branded something else. But back in 2012, this was a pretty new occurrence. And the Ruf has a lot of similarities to the 997, but a lot of changes.
Right off the get, you have this front bumper, which is way more aggressive than what you generally see on like a standard 911 turbo of this generation. You have the wheels, which are one of my favorite parts about the car. The wheels really do have this aggressive race style look that gives you kind of this sense of stability just by looking at them.
And then behind them are just massive carbon ceramic brakes.
Right.
And I noticed this real quick. Carbon fiber mirrors, little E36 M3 flare right there.
Little Ganador nod there. But maybe the most definitive part of the car as a whole is the scoops on the hips of the car. This is something we see Ruf went on to do for many generations, including their early cars. You've seen other great tuner shops like 9FF go on to incorporate this into it. Basically, the reason for that is the overall aerodynamics of the car forces the cold air through these scoops into the back, which really does help a lot with the overall cooling of the car.
Right, because on the 997 turbo, the scoops were here, obviously moved up there for different aerodynamic reasons. And it's got a different wing. This is not a factory 911 wing.
Right, this carbon fiber piece is actually mounted through the bottom portion of this. Gives it kind of a unique, more subtle look to it. Again, this is something that you would see on the RT12 or RT12S. The RT12R has a much higher style GT wing, which gives it a much more aggressive look. But again, this car as an RT12R, optioned with the S appearance package, gives it a little bit more of that softer road look.
That's why coming up with all the facts for this car was incredibly difficult, because it's just so rare and so hard to find. This is the generation where Ruf was still using the 911 chassis, and nowadays their new cars are actually full carbon tubs, completely built in their own factory, which is pretty sick. But this car still has a Porsche-based engine, so we'll check that out. All right, so as we all know, Porsche engine bays are not interesting to look at, so same goes for the Ruf. But 720 horsepower, all-wheel drive, 6-speed manual, right out the box.
Yeah,
incredible.
So of the 13 cars, you could choose between having an option as all-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive. Only 2 owners chose rear-wheel drive. The other 11 are all-wheel drive, just like this example, which makes sense because that has a lot of power to put down in a rear-wheel drive car.
And this motor is actually very similar to the previous generation of 911s, the 996. This is the same motor that was in the Le Mans winning GT1 car. Very similar to what's in the GT3 RS. It's the Mezger-based motor, so it's super strong. And for it to be making 700 crank horsepower is like insane. I do think one of the most interesting things about this car is, you said it before, but I didn't want to rush into it. On the inside, crazy.
Yep, good stuff.
Strong horn. Ruf spent millions of dollars developing the strongest, most assertive horn in all of Germany. I just made that up. But the thing that is really interesting in this car is it has an integrated roll cage. The roll cage is built so tight to the chassis of the car and is actually upholstered behind all of the factory pillars and headliner. So this car is stiffer and safer than a standard 911, and it's something I haven't seen in any other road car. Otherwise, the interior of the car is very familiar to a 997 owner, like myself. It's got bespoke gauges, it's got a different shift knob. The steering wheel, it's really unique and sort of calls back to the older generations of air-cooled cars. But for the most part, this is a very familiar situation inside. This is spec'd as a RT12S, so it has comfort seats and a little bit more creature comforts for being on the street.
Another thing interesting about the tuning of this car is that it actually runs 2 ECUs. It retains the factory Porsche ECU with a piggybacked Ruf tuned ECU.
Let's get it out on the road and you can fill us up with some more facts about it.
Oh, amazing.
So the front bumper on this car cost over $20,000,
Yeah.
and every single entry and exit to parking lots in California is horrendous. We're gonna be extra careful. Clutch is so easy.
Super easy.
Oh my God, this thing sounds incredible.
Dude, it's nice, right?
You know a car is good when you're going like 3 miles an hour and you're already super excited about it. Right off the bat, this car is incredibly practical.
Yeah, I mean, it's like driving a regular car.
If you're not into cars, no one's looking twice at you. Like, you're not attracting unwanted attention driving a damn near 7-figure.
Yeah, I mean,
911
the
around.
thing is, like, it's like driving an R33 GTR and then driving a 400R.
Right.
And you're like, yeah, this is a little different.
Yeah, it's a really unique driving experience. But the first thing you notice is like this car is made to be a road car.
Yeah.
It's not a race car for the street at all.
Yep.
Compared to even the GT3 RS, this car is way more civil, has a lot of road manners, the suspension ride's great, like everything about it is so chill for the street.
Yeah.
Holy crap. Holy shit. Whoa. This thing is so fast. I don't think anyone should have spec'd this in 2-wheel drive.
Yeah, it's great.
If this was only 2-wheel drive, I'd imagine it would be quite the handful.
A little squirrely, yeah.
Holy crap. Dude, this thing pulls so hard. We're at 3,500 RPM, third gear. Has some lag, and then it just goes. Insane.
So the car redlines at 7,500 RPMs. It's from the factory, 18.9 pounds of boost. So making some pretty good boost right off of the get on this thing. And the interesting thing about this car is Ruf opted to do away with the active suspension that comes factory on the 911 for their own static version of it, which adds a little bit more stability to the car's overall ride. Yeah.
I gotta do another second gear hit. That was like too good. Insane. Yo, what I love about it too is that it is old school technology, and the fact that it has lags and it pulls so hard to redline. It's at a loss for words. I'm probably gonna go home and just sit on Redlist looking at 997 turbos now, because I know it's nothing compared to this, but like,
yeah, it's really good.
what a car.
It's really good.
Thank you so much for letting me drive this car.
Hell yeah.
Guys, if you want to buy this car, which I don't think is actually for sale, but any Japanese import cars.
Everything is for sale if you want to buy this car.
Make sure to hit up Brian on Instagram or hit him up at Toprank. They've got tons of inventory, lots of cool cars. I don't know. Tell them I sent you so I could keep driving their cars.
Yeah, more Porsche stuff on the way.
Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, spicy.
Come on, Jam. Well, it has been a while since I've driven the Ruf cars, and they are some of the best production cars ever made. If you're a nonsense human like me, it's probably hard to see the appeal of a car like these, but I understand it. Some people out there want a car that is 100% modified and personalized, but is absolutely perfect. And I think these two cars were great examples of that. And nowadays, there are endless brands doing just that. We saw earlier this year our friend Kaisa and Magnus Walker launched their own Jaguar-based brand doing just that. And then you have companies like Singer and Gunther Works that are selling these cars for well over $1 million, and they are backlogged with orders for over a year, which is insane. Well, I for one am stoked that these cars exist. And there are plenty more on the horizon. So comment below, let me know what chassis you would like to see this done with. Who is sleeping on a market that you think would be a big seller and have a huge fan base if they had an OEM modded car or retro mod? I had a lot of fun shooting this episode. Thanks to everyone for watching. If you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. But for now, I'm out.